guys, and welcome back here to another tutorial, and today we're gonna be carry on with our system here. So in the last lesson what we did is that we basically create a new structure. We're doing a loop now, so we're getting all those records that we have created using our data table in here. So now we have to display. So when you press play, press V, nothing is happening, so we're going to display those rows, and then we're going to start to create the callback event so we can actually place at least start building the parts in the game. So I see you guys in the video. Alright, so the first thing I want to do here is that I'm going to go to my WBP building menu. If you don't know what it is this one here, right? And then if you've been following the series, now we have access to the building parts. So what I want to do here is that in the event construct, just to give you context, pre-construct is when the widget is not yet displayed to the player. Pre-construct is when it's available to the player, and then we have the event tick, which is something I always tick. Right, so we're gonna be using here the event construct just because I want to make sure that when the widget is available, I want to display those parts. And to do this, we're gonna get the building parts here. And I think we're gonna do it better. We're gonna create here a custom event, and we're gonna say this is gonna be called show or refresh parts. So in this way, you can call this event. Let's say somehow the player has discovered another blueprint, and then you can add this, so you can just refresh the widget. So what we're gonna do here is just gonna do a for each loop. We're gonna plug this here, and there we go. And then the next thing I want to do here is that I want to make sure that my scroll box is a variable, and this is going to be the list box. I'm just going to call this list box. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back here. I'm going to get my list box. I'm going to clear the children's. So I'm going to call this method here called clear children, because I want to make sure that everything is inside the panel that gets clear. I don't want anything that I want it to be everything fresh every time. Yeah. And then what we're going to do here is that we remember the widget that we created here, part item or something. So we need to call that widget here. So we're gonna create, we're gonna call the method called create widget, and here we're gonna select the WBP part item. And then what we can do here is that we're gonna get the list box, add it here, and we're gonna call a method called add children. We're gonna plug this here, this array, sorry, this goes like that. Now if you press play, you should be able to see nothing. That's because we have to call the event in the event construct, otherwise nothing gonna happen. There you go. Well, where is it? So there you go. So as you can see, that works every time. You may need to add some padding there, but we can do that in a second. But now you can see that we do have the icons, we do have the name, but it's not displaying. How do we do that? So to do this is that we're gonna open up the children here, and let's open up that, and we're gonna create a function in that will do that for us. There's many ways you can actually do this. I think the simplest way is, again, use the event construct. So I'm just gonna delete that. Or you could also create a custom event, and then you can do that if you want, but I think for the purpose, let's create here as soon as this call, we're gonna do that. So right now we need to pass here a variable. So the variable that we need to pass that contains the information that we're looking for is this array here. So we have to somehow plug it in there. So to plug this array there, I know the type already is the ST building structure. And if you don't know what's, just to recap, this ST building part is this, if you go to variables, is this guy here. It's the ST building part. It's the reference of the structure. But because we're doing a for each in an array, we already have that reference here, right? So to do this, so that's it. We're gonna make sure it's public. Make sure you choose expose on spawn, which is great. I'm gonna compile and save, and then here, if I right click and press refresh, we have that variable there. So I'm gonna connect in here. I'm just gonna change the name because new var is not a great name. We're gonna call it just building part, which is nice. We're gonna come in here. It's gonna do a branch, break here, so we can have access there. Just to recap, I just did a break so I can access the rest of the variables. You can also do something like this. You right click in the structure, and you split pane if you want, but I think I prefer this way just because it's cleaner. If you have many options, you're probably gonna get a little bit lost. So now what we need to do is we get the icon there. So we need to get the icon reference, and here we're gonna get the text reference, right? Make sure that you tick this as a variable so you can access in real time. So here, what we're gonna do, get the icon, the part. Now we're gonna set texture, set text for the text, right? And then the text will be the name. That's okay. And the next one is the icon. So we're gonna set texture to the, set brush from texture. You can plug it in there. And then I think that's okay. Let me check here and compile and save, right? So here, if I press V, nothing gonna happen because the reason why is I think we haven't, oh yeah, we need to refresh the nodes and plug this back. Now I think that when you press play, we should see the icon coming up. See that? So you have the blah 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 blah. So we got all the stuff coming back. The only thing that I can see is a problem is the name problem using the, oh yeah, because I'm using set to tip. That's the wrong one. Is set text. This one here, set text, and then we just plug it in there. Okay, and if I press play, we can do something like this. So just to, let's make the design a little bit better. Let's wrap this whole thing here with a border. Okay, and the border here, we're gonna change the tint to something like a gray color, and let's change the opacity to something like this, just so we can see that it looks a little bit better when it's displaying. Now what I want to do here is that you don't need to do this at this point, it's already working, but I'm just gonna need some padding on this. So the way you can actually do that is that you, I think it's set padding. And then the padding that I want to do here is I want to make sure that top is 5 and the bottom is 5. So we have a little bit of a padding in the difference here, right? If you want to play more with the values, they always recommend is just that you bring the WP, the item part here. So just duplicate that. And then you can play with the values in here with the padding. Let's say you want 10 for everything, so you can do that if you want, but that's just the way I like to play this. And pretty much that's it. Now there's a very important thing here that we need to set up the callback in the controller so we can start to place the part. So to do this is really simple. There's many ways you can actually do this, but I'm gonna do using the simplest one. So what we're gonna do here is on we're gonna create here an event on the bottom that when you click it is gonna send something to the controller straight away. And to do this, this blueprint widget needs the player controller reference to be able to pass the reference in here so it can reference to the controller. You could do this in many ways. I just feel that it's always easy to have access straight to the last part of the piece that you need. So to do that, we're gonna create here the player controller reference. So what we're gonna do that is we're gonna create here player controller ref, and this is going to be of BP player controller. And now we're gonna select object, make sure it's public, make sure it is not an array, just is a single, and you can expose on spawn. Right, compile and save. And now we're gonna go to the blueprint part here, same thing. We're gonna open up that. We're gonna call this player controller ref. Let's just copy the O here. We're gonna call this player controller, and we're gonna mark the object reference and expose on spawn. And make sure it's public, yeah, otherwise it won't work. And now what we can do is that when you open up here the widget, remember that if you refresh this, we have now access to the player controller because we have it created here, and we have take this option expose and spawn and is a public variable. All right, so now you guys can see what I'm doing here. I'm passing the reference to the player controller to this and then to that, and then in here I can do stuff with it. So here we're gonna pass self. Now we're gonna compile and save. In here now we have the player controller reference, so we can do that here, which is really good. Compile and save again. Now in the player part, we have the player controller reference here. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna select the button here. This is on the part item. And then in here, when we have the on clicked, let's click on that. And now we just can do a node here just to test to make sure that we have the player controller. You don't need to do that, but it's just gonna display the player controller name here just to make sure it's working. So if you press V, it's not working. So it is, let me double check if it's okay. Let's check here why the player here is not working when you click on that. So player controller, maybe what we can do is just do a printing here. Let's check if that works. So it's saying hello, which means that the player controller class is not passing properly. Let's check here why. Oh yeah, because we are passing to the wrong information. It needs to be on the player controller, not in the owning player. Now what we can do then is we come here again, player controller, just to make sure that is working, just to make sure that we have the reference. And you see that? It's hard to see at the moment because we put the widget in front, but the player controller is in there, definitely, for sure. Okay, so now let's start here the callback on the player. So we have now set up all the widget logic. Let's rename this. Let's call load widget widget parts. Okay, and here we got everything set up. So this only controls the widget. So we're gonna right click here. I'm gonna call widget only, and then I am gonna just for organizations purposes. So I'm just gonna make sure it's like red color, just so I know this is only the widget stuff. And now to control the building parts, I'm gonna create here a graph, new graph, and I'm gonna call this new graph called the building part. And in here, we're gonna create a new event, and this event here is gonna be called start building part. And this is gonna have a parameter. So the parameter that we need here is the building part reference. So it's gonna be building part, and this is gonna be st building part. And now I'm gonna press print here. I am gonna break this, the name, we're gonna put it that, and I'm gonna compile and save this. And now if I go back to the building part, what I can do is I can get my player controller, and then I can call this method called start building part. Plug it in here, and now because we have the building part reference, can pass through that. Yeah. And now if we did everything right, you should see the part name, which is really good. You see that? Floor, I know it's hard to see. Let me just move this widget to a different location for now. Let me just attach this, that, something like this for now. One, there you go. So there you go. So you guys can see that we have floor, we have place, and then you have the pillar. Yeah. So thank you guys for watching. Just to give you, if you want to leave this widget on this side, all you gotta do here is you select the border. Make sure in the anchor you click here. All right. And then what you're gonna do is normally it's gonna be 0. You just set the alignment X to 1, and that's all you need to do. So you go on the right side. The reason why I did this only is just because I can't see what I'm trying to debug in there. So that's why I moved this here. But you can move to whatever location you want. So thank you very much for watching. In the next lesson now, we're gonna spawn the, actually we're gonna set up the player camera. So when you press play, you have the player camera. We're gonna probably use some kind of a line trace to see where is the player pointing, so before you can place the part in the right place. So thank you very much for watching, and I see you guys in the next lesson.